Solidifying key political support. Donald Trump talks to the faithful while Hillary Clinton speaks to Planned Parenthood. Muhammad Ali Memorial. Thousands of people pay tribute to the late boxing legend. Abortion amendment. Representative Andy Harris explains how he's trying to limit Obamacare. And spectacular artwork, a replica of the Sistine Chapel. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, June 10th, 2016. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Dueling presidential candidate speeches in Washington today, one pro-abortion, the other faith-based. Wyatt Goolsbee is covering Hillary Clinton's speech to Planned Parenthood. Jason Calvi attended Donald Trump's meeting with Christian conservatives, many of whom are still undecided. Jason?
Yeah, Donald Trump promising that everyone on his list to be a Supreme Court justice is pro-life. He also talked about marriage and defending religious freedom. He spoke here at the gathering of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, a group that's mostly made up of conservative evangelicals. Donald Trump is still courting, this reliable conservative base.
His third time speaking at this conference, this time off a teleprompter. He's working to convince conservative never-Trumpers to board the Trump train. He spoke of shared values.
Right now we have a very divided nation. We're going to bring our nation together. If I win, we're going to bring our nation together.
And that talk convinced undecided voter Linda Boswell to back Trump.
I wanted to see a president a presidential candidate and someone who's eventually going to become president that will appoint Supreme Court justices that do have that position, that they're going to have the value of life is important, all life.
But Abby Tome isn't sure yet.
I think how he flip-flops on what he says. Like, he'll say one thing and then he'll change his mind a couple of days later.
Earlier, the Senate Majority Leader who's backing Trump showed how important this race is.
We put measures like these on the president's desk after years of Harry Reid protecting him from tough choices. He never got those kind of bills on his desk. It shows what's possible if we elect a new president.
Conservative Congressman Raul Labrador is now backing Trump.
I'm supporting him right now. I just think he needs to change his tone of behavior. And it's going to be difficult, I think, for people to keep supporting him if he doesn't learn how to engage in a more productive way.
For today, Trump is subtly distancing himself from the criticism of what Speaker Ryan called a racist comment about the judge hearing the Trump University case.
Religious freedom, the right of people of faith to freely practice their faith, so important. Freedom of any kind means no one should be judged by their race or their color.
Donald Trump rallying tonight in the battleground state of Virginia. Later this month, he will be meeting with evangelical leaders from across the country. And we did get some responses from liberal groups who criticized Donald Trump for promoting religious freedom today, but they say he's also in the past suggested banning Muslims temporarily from entering the country. Lauren?
Well, there were certainly some people outside and inside today protesting. What can you tell me about them?
Yeah, I did speak to several of the people that were escorted out of the Trump speech today. They're from a group called Code Pink. They're anti-war protesters. They tell me they don't support any of the candidates.
Jason Calvi, thank you very much. A group of Trump supporters are forming a super PAC called Women Vote Trump. Diamond and Silk are YouTube stars who have received millions of views for their viral pro-Trump videos.
We're not voting based on race or gender. We're voting based on who is going to do the job. Right. And when we look at everybody, Donald Trump is the only one that can come in and clean up this insider mess. He's the only one that can get the job done.
This group plans to announce ads and state leaders in the coming week. Republican strategist, Washington Times political columnist Mercedes Schlapp joins us now. Mercedes, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren.
Wasn't that something to see those women, right?
The passion.
The passion is right. Let's talk about Donald Trump. According to Gallup, 7 in 10 women have an unfavorable impression of him. And it seems like he has a lot to do to gain more female support. What would you advise him?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a political novice. We have to remind ourselves of that. But I think for Donald Trump, it will be talking about the kitchen table issues. It will be talking about the economy. It will be talking about education for Catholic women. It will be talking about religious freedom, which is something that he addressed today. This was an incredibly different approach and contrast than Hillary Clinton. So here was Donald Trump at the Faith and Freedom Coalition event. Where was Hillary Clinton? At the Planned Parenthood event.
That's right. And with Donald Trump, it seems like the shoe is on the other foot for him. He used to come into these rallies and command them and talk off the cuff. And now he's on teleprompter, as Jason told us, and he seems to be courting the conservative vote. Is that right?
Well, exactly. Donald Trump needs the conservative vote. Why? Because when you look at the conservative vote, the religious activists, so many of them are involved in the political party. They are the grassroots activists. They're the ones that make the phone calls, reach out and really have a community. He needs that base to support him. And plus, it's taken them a while to come on board because they've had other candidates that they've been supporting in the process.
You know, with Latinos, 68% of Latinos support Hillary Rodham Clinton. Top leaders have rebuked him this week. It's been a terrible mess for him over these Judge Curiel comments about his Mexican heritage. Where do you come down on all of this?
Well, unfortunately, I think Donald Trump just misspoke. I think he really had an opportunity to say here was a conflict of interest with this judge. This judge should recuse himself. He should not have addressed his ethnicity. It didn't have to deal with his ethnicity. It had to deal with the fact that this judge had ties to Hillary Clinton. Guess what? And so that, I think, was a very unfortunate statement. And I think for Hispanics who right now still don't feel part of the process, this is an opportunity for Donald Trump to build the bridges, make the connection, say, hey, my economic plan, the fact that I believe in religious liberties, that we share a lot of the same social values, come my way, support my campaign. It's going to be an uphill battle for Donald Trump, but I think if he's disciplined and can find his message of economic populism, I think it could definitely improve. I'm not going to say he's going to get those magical 40, 50% numbers, but break in swing states.
All right. Mercedes Schlapp, Washington Times political columnist, thank you so much for joining us. And Hillary Clinton gave her first speech this afternoon since she received President Obama's endorsement. She promised Planned Parenthood supporters that if she's elected, she's got their back. Wyatt Goolsbee reports from the Washington Hilton, where pro-lifers rallied in protest. Wyatt.
Lauren, pro-lifers want to make it clear that Hillary Clinton doesn't speak for all women. They say whether she hears that message or not, it's their duty to stand against abortion and for human life. Pro-life groups call on voters to say no to Hillary Clinton when they go to the ballot box in November. They reject what they call Clinton's radical support for abortion.
It's very sad to see someone like her rise to this, to the level that she is with this presidential election, and champion the killing of unborn human beings that emotionally mauls their mothers.
If I could talk to Hillary Clinton, I would ask her just to reconsider what she's standing for and to think about the lives that she's ended by encouraging abortion.
Inside the hotel, Clinton was greeted with applause. In her first speech since becoming the Democratic Party's presumptive nominee, she linked abortion rights and birth control to economic growth.
If right-wing politicians actually cared as much about protecting women's health as they say they do, they'd join me in calling for more federal funding for Planned Parenthood.
The nation's largest abortion provider first endorsed Clinton in January. Clinton said in April that an unborn child doesn't have constitutional rights. Congressional Republicans like Marsha Blackburn disagree. She's leading an investigative panel into Planned Parenthood and one of their business partners called STEM Express. The panel put out a report this month which lays out evidence that STEM Express sold baby body parts for 4 to 6 times the purchase cost.
See, what you've done is to turn the baby, the unborn baby, into a profit center.
Blackburn called on the Department of Health and Human Services to conduct a swift and full investigation. Clinton has not commented on that report. In her speech today, Clinton attacked Donald Trump, saying if he's elected, he would restrict women's health care rights. She also said he would take America, quote, backward. Lauren?
Mike Goolsbee, thank you very much. Day Gardner is the president of the National Black Pro-Life Union and the founder. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Your website says of the 50 million children that have been killed by abortion, 17 million of them were black children, and abortion is the #1 killer of black people in this country. Why have African American voters, especially those in the southern states, steadfastly supported Hillary Clinton?
I know, it's a sad thing, really, but really they buy into the lie. This is something that's been happening over many, many, many years and decades even, where blacks have come to see Democrats as their savior in some way. And I think, and of course it happened all during the civil rights time. And unfortunately, they bought into the lie that in order to have a better life, to be successful, somehow you should go ahead and kill your child if for some reason you can't afford the child. And of course, there's a lot of help out there. We make sure of it, the pro-life community.
You're a Donald Trump supporter, proud Donald Trump supporter. How can you be confident that he will be a pro-life president?
Well, you know what, Lauren? I supported Donald Trump from the very beginning, which of course a lot of the pro-life community they were scratching their heads. But there was something about Donald Trump that was very, very different. The fact that he's very original and very unique. We have seen many of our pro-life representatives and senators along the way, people that we thought were steadfast pro-life, and they flip-flopped. They lost important times when important votes came up. They weren't there. They didn't show up. But you know what? Donald Trump is very different. I've come to the point when you think in terms of the fact that a lot of our politicians, you take Mitt Romney, you take McCain, you take George Bush, W. Bush, who believed in exceptions. So Trump does also. I'm not for exceptions at all. So I don't want anyone to think
like
that.
he is the best alternative.
Of
let me
course,
ask you here: how much would a Clinton presidency hurt the pro-life movement?
It'd be devastating. It'd be devastating. We might as well forget the Supreme Court. Abortion will be there forever. She has vowed to be the abortion president. She'll make sure that taxpayers continue funding Planned Parenthood, and if not to the tune that they're funding already, I'm sure that she'll raise those numbers. It would be devastating. She cannot win.
Day Gardner is the president of the National Black Pro-Life Union. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Iraqi coalition forces take a southern portion of Fallujah. One official says it will take the city within days. In a detailed briefing, the special envoy for the global coalition to counter ISIS says it's lost 50% of its territory in Iraq, 20% in Syria. Brett McGurk says its ability to recruit has become more difficult, and the coalition has killed 1,000 ISIS leaders in 3 months. But the administration admits it's up against serious opposition.
This is how barbaric ISIL is and why we have to wipe them off this map. Before they leave an area, before they left Ramadi, those who survived and retreated, they left IEDs, booby traps, in almost every home.
And the administration says the number of airstrikes in Iraq in the first 5 months of the year increased by 42%. The Vatican has let go of its outside auditor. PricewaterhouseCoopers will stay on as a consultant. The Pope ordered a financial audit last year following a scandal over leaked financial documents. 3 Vatican officials are on trial for the leaks. And police estimate more than 100,000 people lined the memorial route for Muhammad Ali today. The boxing champion's funeral procession traveled past his boyhood home in Louisville on the way to this afternoon's memorial service. Several celebrities, star athletes, and politicians came to pay their respects. Former boxers Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis, actor Will Smith served as pallbearers, while former President Bill Clinton, actor Billy Crystal, and journalist Bryant Gumbel planned to offer tributes at the memorial. Ali died Friday at the age of 74. Coming up, former British prime ministers say no to Britain exiting the European Union. But what about the Catholic Church? We'll go to Rome for reaction. Faith leaders toast the Queen of England as thousands line the street for her birthday. The Pope gives St. Mary Magdalene her own feast day on July 22nd. The Vatican says Mary Magdalene represents the dignity of women, the new evangelization, and the mystery of divine mercy. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Lawmakers approve an amendment to ban abortion coverage in Obamacare's multi-state plans. The measure passed a House committee yesterday, 30-17, but what are the chances for passage? Republican Representative Andy Harris of Maryland is a Catholic doctor and sponsored the amendment. He joins us now from his Capitol Hill office. Welcome to the program.
It's good to be with you.
Tell us about this amendment and why you believe it's important.
Well, you know, Americans don't want federal tax dollars to be spent for abortion or to help fund insurance policies that pay for abortion services. We had the Hyde Amendment, which covered Medicaid. The Smith Amendment covered the federal employees' health benefit plan insurance. But after the passage of the Affordable Care Act, it created a new type of plan, the multi-state plans that are administered by the federal government. And without this amendment, those administrative costs for plans that might include abortion, in fact, would be paid for by federal taxpayers.
You have sponsored this amendment or one like it before. What is the likelihood that this will go anywhere?
Well, you know, we just have to keep trying. We've had this amendment put in the bill 4 years in a row. It hasn't survived through the entire legislative process, but I believe at some point it will, because all it does, it just, again, extends the Hyde protection, the Smith Amendment protection, again, to make sure that federal tax dollars aren't used to pay for these Affordable Care Act plans, these multi-state plans that will eventually be sold in every state, are already sold in some states, and in fact are covering abortion in some states.
You're on the select congressional panel investigating Planned Parenthood. Can you update us with any concerns over the abortion providers' finances?
Well, it's become very clear that profit is being made, and substantial profit is being made on the sale of these fetal tissue parts. And it's occurring, the profit is not only being made by the abortion providers, it appears, but huge profits made by the middlemen who basically obtain these baby body parts at the abortion clinics and then sell them at huge profits to researchers and other users of fetal tissue.
Okay, Republican Representative of Maryland, Andy Harris, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Brexit, or Britain's exit from the European Union, goes to vote in 2 weeks. Two former United Kingdom prime ministers unite in opposition to the movement. Former Conservative Prime Minister John Major and former Labour leader Tony Blair say leaving the EU would be a historic mistake, threatening Northern Ireland's hard-fought peace process.
Make a positive and patriotic choice to remain. Choose to fight for the UK's interest in Europe, and in so doing safeguard the UK's interests at home as well.
These things took a long time to put together, and it's foolish, profoundly foolish, to play any form of risk with those foundations of stability.
Both say border control would limit travel to Northern Ireland, and the union with Scotland would be threatened. Ed Penton is the Rome correspondent of EWTN's National Catholic Register. Ed, both the British ambassador to the Holy See and the Vatican have declined to comment on the issue. What are your sources telling you about the Catholic Church's approach?
Well, yes, they're being rather quiet about it. The Vatican never takes a line on this, a public line on these sort of things. They leave it to the local government, the local bishops to deal with. So there's no clear line. But what I hear is, I think, a mixture of opinion, of course, as there is everywhere, that there are good things about leaving the European Union, and there are negative things as well. And it's really up to the local people and up to prayer, of course, which the bishops have called for, to make the right decision.
Pope Francis had spoken about the importance of embracing immigrants. He does that all the time. Yet, one reason given for leaving the EU is a concern about open borders. Now, how does this impact the Catholic perspective?
Yes, well, this is one argument used by those Catholics who are in favour of remaining in the Union, because they feel that it's better for migrants to move easily. They have a greater opportunity that way, move across borders freely. And that's one of the great successes of the European Union, has been this free border policy. So those who are in favour of staying in the Union think this is a good thing. But on the other hand, there are those who say that there is uncontrolled immigration with the European Union because of those free borders, and there is no means of really controlling who comes in and who goes out. So there are arguments on both sides, and both of them sort of in the national interest, but also in the interests of migrants. And it's a decision that the British people are going to have to take and weigh up.
Ed Penton is the Rome correspondent of the National Catholic Register. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Laura.
Britain celebrates Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday with pomp, pageantry, and prayer. A Thanksgiving service was held at St. Paul's Cathedral. Her actual birthday was in April. Prince Charles and his wife Camilla were on hand, as was Prince William, his wife Kate, and Prince Harry. Famed photographer Annie Leibovitz had taken pictures of Britain's oldest and longest reigning monarch. Up next, a new poll finds divorce and birth control morally acceptable. We'll talk to a Catholic woman with a different take. And the Sistine Chapel comes to Mexico City. We'll take you there. Pope Francis sends a tweet to mark the beginning of the Jubilee for the sick and disabled. He wrote, "The tenderness of God is present in the lives of all those who attend the sick and understand their needs with eyes full of love." Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A new poll examines American morals, and the findings show some trends. Let's take a look at them. A Gallup poll released this week says 89% of Americans believe birth control is morally acceptable. Divorce closely followed, 72%, and the issue with the least support, 10%, married men and women having an affair. Mary Rice Hassan directs the Catholic Women's Forum and the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How do American Catholic views differ from the views that we just saw?
I wish I could say they differ, because the views of American Catholics unfortunately mirror the views of the culture at large, because Catholics swim in the same cultural waters as everyone else. And unfortunately, polls like this do not distinguish generally between practicing Catholics and just anyone who identifies as a Catholic. So Catholics' views, for example, on birth control, are 82% think it's morally acceptable.
On birth control?
On birth control, whereas the cultural average is 89. So we're very much
right there. That is exactly the opposite of what I would have thought. You know, you say that Catholics conform to our culture, and there's either a knowledge problem or a heart problem. What does that mean?
Yeah, so here's the thing. If you've got the culture saying one thing that's opposed to what the church teaches, the question is, how do you get people back? And the fact that we've got this divide says there is a problem of heart and head, you know. So you appeal to, you give people information, the natural law, you tell them what's good for them, you educate them. So for example, contraception is not good for women, and we now know that. Physically, it's not good for the culture. So you give people information that addresses sort of the head. But in terms of the heart, that's a tougher thing. And you know, as a mom, my children did not learn by trial and error that the stove is hot and that they can't play in the traffic.
You just told them.
Right. I'm a mother who loves them, so I told them. So in the same way,
do not do is what you're saying.
We
need to give them
the church.
Advice.
And that's what the Lord God gave us, the church, to teach us and to help us form our consciences. So this is where we've sort of dropped the ball with Catholics.
Do you have hope for the future?
I do, because I think we're learning that we need to speak up. We need to give people the truth. People want the truth because they want to love God.
Mary Rice Hassan, thank you so much for joining us, Catholic Women's Forum at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Thank you. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter at Lauren Ashburn or at EWTN. We leave you tonight with a closer look at a life-size reproduction of the Sistine Chapel. It was erected in Mexico City. Visitors say it helps people who can't travel to Rome admire the famous artwork. Have a wonderful weekend. Good night, and God bless.